What comes to mind first when you think of the world of Ratchet Clank future Tools of Destruction? Is it the urban planet Kerwan, home to the gigantic city of Metropolis, or the Gelatonian plant located on Cobalia? How about the lava refineries on the planet Rykan V? Maybe even the Greely Comet with its icy wasteland? For me, these all come to mind, and even more. In this video I'll delve into the wonderful world building and environmental design of Tools of Destruction. To start off, we first need to understand the significance of the future series' shift to the PlayStation 3 and the new visual possibilities that came with it. It wasn't just about showing off fancy new graphics. Although seeing Metropolis in all high definition glory for the first time was pretty darn sweet, the increased processing power and graphical capabilities allowed the developers to weave a deeper narrative into the world itself. Back in the PlayStation 2 days, while the Ratchet Clank games were beautiful and varied, the world sometimes felt a bit blocky. Don't get me wrong though, they were a blast to explore, but the technical limitations of the time meant that the environmental storytelling could not be quite as impactful. Often, the story was delivered primarily through cutscenes and dialogues. But with the PlayStation 3, Insomniac Games could pack so much detail and visual flair into these environments that they started telling stories on their own. Just look at Metropolis again. All the small scenes in the distance and fighting of NPCs in the opening level suggests that there is a conflict going on, and all the flying vehicles with probably citizens in them reinforce this narrative. This is just one example, but it made the world feel believable and lived in. I remember as a kid just standing still and looking around at times, admiring all the scenery and buildings. As you venture beyond Metropolis, the environment shifts to reflect the different struggles across the galaxy. The planet of Fastoon, with its rundown Lombax buildings and Raritanium mines, hint at a rich history, which the Great War is part of. For context, this was the war between primarily the Lombaxes and Cragmites, which is the reason for the ruins on Fastoon. This way, the improved visuals also allow the world to communicate, so to speak, the lore in more detail, giving the player a deeper understanding. Pretty cool, right? This is what set the future series really apart from the previous 4 games. I will analyze more of these specific examples throughout the video. The storytelling through design goes beyond just visuals. It's not only crates and enemies that drop bolts. Some objects like plants and fences also drop bolts when destroyed. These destructible objects not only added a satisfying layer to the gameplay, but also subtly hinted at the wear and tear of everyday life within the game world. It all felt real, lived in, and most importantly, fun to interact with. And let's not forget the hidden secrets. Scattered throughout the environments were golden bolts, skill points, and hollow plants. These weren't just randomly placed, they rewarded exploration, which motivates the player to do so. Finding that lost piece of the hollow plant in a forgotten corner of the Greely Comet felt like uncovering a secret piece of its history. So, the next time you boot up Tools of Destruction, take a moment to appreciate all the little details. Let's go into more detail about every important location. The opening level of the game takes place in Metropolis, located on the planet Kerwan. It's a sprawling cityscape characterized by towering skyscrapers decorated with lush vegetation, with busy skyways crisscrossing through the air. The skyscrapers reach such heights that looking down reveals nothing but a thick blanket of fog. These impressive structures are crowned with bronze caps topped by elegant spires. Sky bridges, platforms and open areas within the skyscrapers allow for local foot traffic. The city is home to many important buildings, including the Planetary Defense Center. To move the population from and to these buildings, there are many forms of transportation. From of course walking, to flying vehicles in their pre-designated lanes, and a transit system of red grav trains. The game begins with the invasion by Tachyon. You fight the Imperial Army's Drovit forces, which come in 2 variants, sentries and troopers. The former use melee attacks with pincer arms, while the latter wield long-range laser attacks. Both can be equipped with shields that block low-caliber weapons, as well as cloaking devices in certain cases. Drovit troopers sometimes also use jetpacks and hover above the ground. There's an elite variant for both types with thicker black armor that includes extended visor protections. They also pilot a number of vehicles, which are a Tachyon gunship, Enforcer, Obsidian Enforcer, Drovit cyclic cannon, and a Tachyon transport ship. The level design in Metropolis consists mainly of smaller areas and has a linear path through the city. The level alternates between indoor and outdoor areas. Indoor areas are unfortunately not that detailed. I would have liked to see more objects of the everyday life of its citizens. Now it's only some greenery and destructible crates. Outdoor areas are actually not that different. They also feature not much more than greenery and crates, and occasionally some debris. The main focus of this level are the enemies, the grand scale of the city and the destruction of it, not the closer environment. Connecting these sections are mag rails, meteor pads and sky bridges, which break up the gameplay nicely. An element that maybe will go more unnoticed is the sound design. Metropolis has 3 different soundtracks that perfectly capture the related scene, which is fast paced and tense most of the time, since there is almost constantly some action going on. I won't go into every small detail of the sound effects, but I will analyze some that are exclusive to Metropolis. A faint moment after you're loaded into the level, the soundtrack hasn't started playing, which is the perfect opportunity to hear the background sounds. You hear a faint wind, running water and some birds chirping, which contemplates the greenery in the city. A few seconds later, you also hear a flying car coming by and explosions in the background, which fades you into the realization that there's a battle going on. At a later moment, you have grav trains coming at you while on mag rails, which appropriately horn louder when they get closer. And while skydiving, you get a sense of speed, partially because of the wind effect you hear. Next on your journey is the Gelatonium capital of the galaxy, Cobalia. It has lush, swamp-like environments with exotic plants, rocks and wildlife. It is surrounded by water, as you can see on this map. When you get further into the planet, you encounter the Cobalia Spaceport, which is next to the Gelatonium plant. Around the spaceport are consumer bots, transporting goods in and out of the plant. And near the spaceport is a cave, home to leviathans. Inside, the Gelatonium plant is filled with liquid gelatonium rivers and waterfalls. The gelatonium is transported to large pumps used by the facility to produce the fuel, which is used for the flying vehicles, among other things. The plant is inhabited by tumphoids that dispose of and consume gelatonium cubes to prevent workers from bouncing on them. The enemy types on Cobalia reflect this mixture of nature and industry, including Cerulane swarmers, Cerulane centipedes, basilisk leviathans, flying pterodactyls, and octomoths. The level design cleverly blends these contrasting environments, creating a sense of unease and environmental destruction. A few abandoned facilities are seen between the islands, which highlight the devastating impact of corporate greed on a once thriving ecosystem. This level is also quite linear, but implements some verticality to keep it interesting. While exploring the vibrant nature, a calm but mysterious soundtrack plays in the background. The chirping of exotic birds, the rustling of leaves in the breeze, and the spewing of a geyser create a sense of peace. During the fight with a basilisk leviathan, a more tense soundtrack is played. As you come closer to the spaceport, it switches to a futuristic kind. The calm sounds of nature are replaced by the endlessly flying vehicles and the hissing of released steam from industrial pipes. Inside the gelatonium plant, you mainly just hear Aldic flown goo, from the waterfalls to the pipes, with a mysterious soundtrack that gives a sense of urgency. Which is correct, since you need to get back to the smuggler. All these sounds enhance the overall storytelling, by contrasting the natural world with the industrial. Next up is the planet Kortog, and its capital city, Stratus. The whole city is suspended high above the planet, using huge propellers, and looks kind of similar to Metropolis City with its building style. One of its most notable locations is the Hall of Knowledge, which the Zoni directed Ratchet to. The docks are also a point of interest, which are used to transport goods throughout the separate islands of the city. The citizens travel via flying vehicles, while Ratchet can navigate using robo-wing launchers and the swing shot. The planet has a reddish color, and given that Stratus City is located in the sky, it is possible that Kortog is a gas planet, with no actual land. Ratchet & Clank fight again through Drawfit forces, the usual enemy types. The level design in Stratus City throws some unique challenges your way. It's again a linear path through the city, but you have to traverse parts over the void, using the earlier mentioned transport methods. Destroyed bridges will keep you on alert, and you want to avoid the electric pools. This level also introduces the swimming mechanic, and you have to avoid underwater mines while doing so. Sound design is utilized in different ways. In the beginning, the ambient sounds are less extensive than on previous planets. The only sounds you hear, apart from the soundtrack, are explosions in the background. I would have liked to hear more of the sound from the city, such as the propellers of the buildings and wind flowing, since the city is quite high. When you walk a bit further, a large display warns citizens for a fugitive Lombax. When you are swimming underwater, you hear some bubble sounds and your underwater swimming gear. Unfortunately, the soundtrack and announcements aren't muffled, which do take away some of the immersion. The next planet is especially significant for Ratchet, since it's his ancestral home, Fastoon, a planet with plenty of Lombax history. The environmental storytelling here is the best so far. It's a desert planet, with rocky mountains surrounding the city. The only flora are some cactus-like plants. It was the homeworld of the Lombax race. After being ravaged by war, the planet is now home to the so-called Lombax ruins. These are the remains of a major Lombax city, containing rundown buildings, a tall skyscraper, a plaza with a weird statue, and a cave with a waterway and vibranium mine inside. A short distance away is the court of Azimuth. After landing, Ratchet finds a damaged Aphelion, and collects parts for the ship from around the ruins. It is now occupied by scavengers looking for Lombax technology, called nanophytes. There are two variants of them, Clubber and Bomber nanophytes. You can practically guess from the name, but the first one uses melee attacks, while the second throws bombs. There are also alien spawn pods, which spawn both nanophytes and grapples. The level design is quite diverse here. You have a medium-sized open area with multiple ways to go to. You can traverse using your swing shot, flying gear, zip lines and meteor pads. The swimming sections provide a nice variety to the gameplay, and this level also adds some interactive elements, such as pumps that can crush you and moving platforms. In addition, there is a simple puzzle element, where you have to walk over lights in a certain sequence. The sound design is less extensive than I would have liked to see. The only thing you hear is the soundtrack, with no audible background sounds. The soundtrack is good though. Inside the cave are again no background sounds. It would be the perfect opportunity to implement some sounds like echoing rocks and dripping water. A stormy aquatic planet in the cerulean sector of the Polaris galaxy. That is Mukow. It is notably home to the Imperial Fight Festival, an exclusive battle resort for Emperor Tachion's most elite troops. The style of the building stands out, featuring bright yellow with dark purple colors, as well as glowing green lights. Surrounding the Colosseum is a large carnival park. This has a large and deadly Ferris wheel, as well as Emperor Tachion's Trail of Turning Terror. The trail features a pair of rotating cylinders, the interior of which are lined with graph ramps and saw blades. Decorating the environment is a wide range of flora, but there is no wildlife, which makes sense. I actually get the same vibe of this planet from the green fingers level of the LEGO Batman video game. The enemy types you encounter here reflect this twisted sense of amusement, from regular Drawfit forces to Hug Me Tight nanobots and different gladiators in the arena. While playing through the level, areas appear quite open, but when looking at the map, they are quite linear. I guess it's because of all the nature surrounded by water. The whole level implements a lot of verticality, and uses the already known traverse methods, from ziplines to meteor pads. But it also adds some original ones. You can ride some of the carnival attractions, such as the Ferris wheel and the carousel. Once you get in the arena, enemies spawn from all directions, and you have your usual boss type level. While exploring the planet, there are at least more background sounds than on previous planets. You hear the birds chirping and water flowing. Some special effects like the fire machines also have matching sounds. Carnival attractions each have their own soundtrack. In the beginning, a calm soundtrack gets played. And at a later stage, a more tense one. In the arena, Quark gives a nice commentary on the fight.
3 rounds of degenerate, homicidal, merciless killing machine!
Next up is the planet Ardolis. It's a remote, tropical, oceanic world which is home to the pirate base of the space pirates led by Captain Slag. Nearby the base are the Sardolo Caves, a network across a series of islands, and the Blackstar Memorial Radio Tower, also known as the Pirate Radio HQ. Inside the caves are waterfalls, wooden bridges to connect them, lampposts to illuminate, and of course pirates. Flying whale-like creatures fly above the area, and pirates make campsites around the islands. The larger pirate base contains a set of metal structures built into the water that tower over the rest of the area. One of these contains a treasure room filled with gold and chests. Another is a pub, advertised by bright neon signs of pirates drinking grog. You fight against pirates, which speaks for itself. There are different types. Buccaneers are simple pirates with swords, and also come in a shieldless variant. Corsairs are also simple pirates, but carry a long-range gun. Twogs are three-eyed bat-like creatures, which are usually found in groups. Swabs are large electrified enemies with melee attacks. And lastly, there are rogues. These are mini-bosses that shoot cannonballs that roll and ricochet, and explode on impact. The level design is very diverse. At the beginning is a grind wheel, but before you can use it, you have to race the first part with your helipod gadget. After that, you have to do the same thing for some floating platforms. A while later, you have to race a ship that gets launched with a blowing propeller. You also have the already known swing shots and zip lines. In the caves, there is a sort of mini-game where you have to cut a laser through certain points. At a later stage, there is a flying boat that gives a tour along the radio tower and mountain, with a beautiful voiceover from Rusty Pete.
This tower boasts a fully functioning radio show.
And while mentioning voiceover, let's talk about the sound design. Exploring the beginning of the map outside of the cave is accompanied by a calm but piratey soundtrack. There are some background sounds like seagulls screeching and quiet nature sounds. In the cave, the soundtrack switches to a more tense one that sounds just like the Pirates of the Caribbean. The background sounds here give a realistic feeling. You can hear the water flowing and muffled sounds of pirates speaking. The only thing I'm missing is that in the bar there is no music playing.
It's the edge of me blade.
The last planet I'm going to talk about today is Rykan V, which is near the Rakar star cluster in the Verdigris sector. It's a volcanic wasteland home to lava refineries, with a spaceport at its site. The lava refineries are the source of the metals used in most advanced weapons and armor sold in the galaxy. The world was occupied by the Lombaxes, as a site for the Center for Advanced Lombax Research, which was used for beta testing the Dimensionator. Upon arrival, the anti-spacecraft cannons prevented Ratchet from landing close, forcing him to arrive by halo jump. Large pipes carry lava around the lava refineries, and ships overhead carry lava off the planet, while Jetitonium transports are imported to the planet. Though basilisk leviathans once inhabited Rykan V, they were scared away by Tachyan's Dravid army. You therefore fight the usual Dravid enemy, such as troopers and cyclocannons. The level design varies in open and closed areas. In the first part you fight many enemies on the open landing platform of the spaceport. When you get over the gate, the more interesting part of the level begins. You get launched in a gyrocycle and make your way through the lava tube network, where you have to avoid fire burners. There are fast sections and slower ones. You eventually reach the Center for Advanced Lombax Research. I found the sound design to be a bit lackluster. In the first part you hear the soundtrack, but no ambient sounds. I would have liked to hear some lava bubbling and industrial sounds, for example. In the lava tube network there are also sounds missing. While the fire burners have fitting sounds, the jumping fireballs don't. Alright, this was the first part of the World of Tools of Destruction. There are many more planets to explore, but that will be for the second part. Please consider subscribing and turning your notifications on if you don't want to miss that video. See you in the next video.